Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanasis, and this is Asian Movie Pulse Interviews. Today I'm here with Ethan Wu, whose film Death Education we recently reviewed as part of the Submit Your Film initiative. How are you, Ethan?
How's it going?
Good, good. So, first question, inevitably, and the and the question I had watching the film is, how did you find this teacher, and if you were part of this lesson?
Ah, so I first came to know of the story back in 2022. I read an article about it. It was an article about this class and the teacher and students engaging in this activity. And at the time, I was like, I quit my like commercial job as like a director making character-based documentary shorts, and I was kind of like finding my next film. And the moment I saw the film, I saw the article, I was like, yeah, I want to make this film. And partially it's because of the topic, death education. And death education, I was doing a little bit of research back then of like, it's not a new thing of like people give lectures, give presentations, or like class seminar, talk about death. But for them, they're doing something different. It's not talking about death through words or lecture or PowerPoint presentation. It's getting to know death through the physical experience of being there, in contact with the ash, in contact with the cemetery. And I found that to be very interesting. I found that can convey something more than words can convey. So I was really interested, but unfortunately, like the event only happened like once a year. So I jot it down on my notebook and I waited a year to make this film.
Hmm. So you attended these lessons in the end, or no?
So I was there filming.
Ah.
I did not know the school nor the teacher nor the student before. I reached out of blue through like a contact of the someone I knew before. They kind of helped me reach out to the teacher and we got connected that way.
And how was the shooting?
It was a very small shoot. We shot, so I did two trips and we only shot for like 5 days.
Hmm.
Because the first thing is like the film central around this event, right? It's one day, this class. And that's only one day. And besides that, I did one day of shooting at the cemetery the day before. And after that was pretty much the first trip. I did the cemetery, I did events, and I recorded the narration of students reading those their diary.
Hmm.
And I came back. I came back was watching the footage. And when I was seeing all the bags, I feel like something was missing. And I remembered like the day before the class, I was in the cemetery doing the location scout. I was like looking around. It's a big, gigantic public cemetery in Yuyao, Guangzhou, China. And I was looking at all the tombstones. They all has name. They all has their names, the words on them. And there was a moment I realized like on the tombstone, the words tells a story of their who's their grandparents, who's their grandchild, who's their kid. And it's their connection to us, to the living world. And I turn around in a corner, there's this like empty pit, which I know that will be filled the next day.
Hmm.
And on the tombstone, it's just one line saying the tomb of the unknown of Yuyao City.
Hmm.
I felt something in the air of like something will be filled there. It's it's a group of unknown, but the ritual will give it meaning. So I was thinking about that, and I felt like, yeah, I need to film the process beforehand. Then I contact with the crematorian and did like another shoot over there. So it was a 5 day. It was quite a small and simple shoot.
Hmm. And who are these unknown usually? How does it happen? Because there were so many, it seems. It's not one or two cases.
Yeah, we were actually surprised when I was there, like seeing how many bags were there.
Hmm.
Because Yuyao is like a pretty small city. It's not like a capital. It's not like a major city in China. It's a small city, and we're surprised by the amount of unknown ashes there were. But like on the back, it all has like a few words saying like the date and how it was found, and
Yeah.
the police officers that brought the bag over there. And some of them are dated back to like 2008 or 2005. And it was mostly from like accident.
Mm,
People died, and the police went there, found the body. And there's back then like the DNA testing wasn't that advanced, so there's no way to know who they are if they don't carry any like identification on them. So it was sort of like there's no way to identify them, the people who unfortunately pass away on some accident, like car accident. And yeah, they were sent to the crematorium. They hold the corpse for a couple days, weeks, or years because there's some logistic involved in like how like if you could cremate a body.
mm,
And years go by, the ashes were still stored there. They were not buried because there's a sense of like, oh, what if someone came back to find them, to claim the ashes? And you know, it's a public agency employee go leave and go, and the bags were just there, left there.
hmm. And why the color, which is it's very cinematic to tell you the truth, but how come they choose this color, which is so popping up, let's say?
You mean the color red?
Yeah.
Well, it has a like cultural significant.
Mm,
Like red, the color of red in Chinese culture is like a symbol of like good luck, fortune. It's more of like just like paying some respect to the death of like we
mm,
all of like respect and good fortune.
mhm. And did you talk to the particular teacher why he decided to start this lesson in the particular way?
Yeah. So this session was actually started by a student.
Uh-huh.
So the way the teacher the class is kind of like a it's like a very special class. It's not like a doesn't have like a fixed curriculum. They do projects.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially like the it was back in 2018 that a group of students went to the crematorium to do some like field research and came across this storage room full of bags. And the students started to doing this like outreach to local government saying, oh, we felt we felt emotionally like sad to see those bags there. Can we do something? And after a couple of years of outreach, proposal to the government and coordination between agencies, they finally was able to do this. And I think the reason why I was so attracted to the story was also by a quote from the teacher when I read the article of like the reason why he do this is because he want to teach about death through the physical embodiment of of their present. It's their
Mm,
present being there. I feel like death is something like, sure, we can talk about death, but we don't really know the weight until we were there. It's something like words cannot describe, and the hope is that through this like ritual, they can come to terms or have the first experience of what it's like to talk about death.
mm. It's very progressive teaching, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
I have to say it is in a way that there's a lot of there's like people coming with a different cultural background, their religious background, and family traditions.
Mhm.
It's not let's just say it's not the most blessing thing for people to like have contact with ashes.
Mhm.
Um, like there's always some stereotypical discrimination against people who work at a crematorium because of think, oh, they spend so much time with the death. It's kind of like a negative feeling of like, oh, somehow they were like a little bit dirty in a sense. So yeah, I agree. This is something that's truly incredible.
Hmm. Hmm. And tell me a bit, I read that also you were connected to this project because of the death of your grandmother that kind of made you want to deal with this. Can you tell me a bit about that? How is it personally for you? Death, let's say.
Yeah, my grandma's still alive.
Ah,
Uh, but so when I said I first had the idea back in 2022, and I waited a year,
mm,
and a lot of stuff happened that year.
mm-hmm,
Of my grandma was incredibly ill because of COVID,
uh-huh,
and she was in the hospital for like months, and to a point of like was in a very bad state.
mm,
And I'm fortunate enough that I don't have none of my relative has passed away. I feel like I'm very lucky in a sense that all my family members are here with me.
uh-huh,
But I kind of always fear. I feel like as a kid, like I don't know if how common it is of like kids always worry about something happening to their parents or grandparents.
mm-hmm,
And I'm very close with my grandparents, and seeing that has a huge impact on me. And also during that year, a few of my friends experienced the passing of their grandparents for the first time, and I kind of remember them being like kind of numbed of like we don't know how to talk about this. Like we're sad, but like we're not allowed to cry. We don't know how to like process grief. And this kind of like encounter around me really got me thinking about our generation or people around me lack the how do I say it? We lack the medium or the language to articulate our emotions when it comes to the kind of inevitable death of like a family members, a close friends, or our own.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, okay. And but you were born in China, but now you have been in the US for some time, I guess. And regarding perception of death, let's say, do you find some differences between China and the US? Like how people perceive it, would you say?
I mean, there's definitely a cultural difference.
Mm,
It's hard to like pinpoint, say what's the difference between Chinese culture and American culture about death. It's because such a large mixture of cultures, of like people from different area have different attitude, um, even like locally, like in different cities, people have different perspective on how to talk about it. But yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like in America there isn't that much of a discussion about death as well. Maybe that's why like whenever I show the films, it resonates with people. It
mm-hmm,
resonates with people in a sense that um it brought out like some part of them, their own experience talking about death or experience with death, and in return got them thinking about living and our relationship with dealing with the inevitable.
mm-hmm,
Um, yeah.
mm-hmm. And tell me a bit more, since you mentioned, how was the reaction of the people who saw the shorts? Were there any negative reactions, let's say, or I don't know?
Yeah. So the film premiered at Sundance in January,
Mm-hmm,
and I was a little bit I wasn't sure going into the premiere of like how people will react because I made the film in a way of like I want to trust the audience for them to put part of them in the film, and it's kind of like a lot of ask. So I wasn't sure how much of the language, the modes of the storytelling, of not without a lot of context or without a lot of dialogue, without lots of narrations, was able to communicate. But the premiere was surprisingly out of my surprise. Uh, went very well. People really connect with the film. My film was played in the documentary short program, and my film played first. Um, I remember like at the premiere, it's like a large theater. It's at the library theater in Park City, and my film played first. And people were kind of like settled in, finding their seats. The room was a little bit like noisy, but as the film plays out, I got a sense of the room settle down. I got a sense of like the tone of the room change,
Hmm.
and I felt really very emotional sitting in the audience seat watching this with the audience. There's a sense of like, yeah, it kind of achieved what I want to do with the film. It's like to have this visual and audio experience of putting the audience near the students and have them be part of the process, be them part of the ritual, and have them be part of the day and see what they see, hear what they hear, and have their own reaction. So I'm very grateful, and it's my pleasure to share the film with everybody.
Okay, okay. And tell me a bit about what you wanted to do with the combination of cinematography and editing in the film, because the sentiment I got is like a ritualistic almost atmosphere. Was that your purpose, or what was your purpose, let's say?
Oh, sorry, what's the word you use?
Ritualistic.
Mm. So I was looking at my notes last week. I was doing some interview the other day, and I wrote down for the cinematography approach. I wrote down intimate and detachment.
hmm hmm
So from the get-go, I know that the film is about the perspective of the student. And it's not about showing the whole event. It's not about showing the wide shot. It's not about like presenting it like in like an observational way. It's
hmm
more about like putting you right here, near them, feel with them. It's about emotion. It's not about oh how many bags I picked. So in that sense, I adopted this on the day of the class. I adopted this method of using longer lens, shallower focus, and handheld way of like going along with them. If they move, I move. So it's a sense of like centering the perspective and subjectivity with the student. And on the other hand, when I go to the uh, cemetery and the crematorium, I just want the audience to look at it. I'm not trying to put any judgment, or I'm not trying to like give a way of how you want like how the audience should think of it. I just want to present it. Which is like I feel like in for this film in this context, it makes sense because the image is powerful enough. The image it tells a story in itself that the best way is just to present it. So that's kind of like how I was like approaching it from like a cinematical practice.
Okay, okay. And tell me a bit, how is it shooting films in the US right now and in China? Is what's the difference, and how is it shooting films, let's say, for you?
Yeah, the difference between making films in China and US.
Yeah.
I so for me personally, um, there's something about why am I making this film,
Mm,
and I kind of have to have like a personal motivation to say, uh, this is my observation, this is my reaction, this is my thinking watching this event or seeing this. And if we take a step back, I would say filmmaking is my way of articulating my thoughts.
hmm
And I believe in visual and sound have a more powerful way of articulating the precise emotions or words. So that's kind of like limited or not limited, that dictate what kind of stories I'm interested in.
Okay.
So uh, when I'm making a film in the US, I kind of will look at projects from like a more intellectual perspective of like, oh, this is my thinking looking at this. And and it gave me a reason of making this film. In terms of like practical logistic filming, uh, there's less restriction to film in China.
Hmm.
For example, like going to the crematorium, there's less like paperwork or bureaucratic procedure I need to go through to film in China. I imagine this to be very difficult. In the state, I have to go through different agencies and to ask for permission. And in China, I kind of was able to talk to the people in charge and just tell them my intention. And they say yes because it was kind of like they told me afterwards of like they allowed me to do this because they felt I was being respectful uh to the process, to the place, and I wasn't bringing any negative stereotypical ideas of how do you want to portray. It's funny that a month ago, after my film premiered, because it's around the same time right now that they're about to do their class events, maybe in 2 weeks around this time. So some news media in China reached out to me saying, "Oh, are they still doing this? I kind of want to do like another story about this." And I was kind of confused of like, why do you want to do another film? And they were more interested in to see the ash. They're trying to a sense of like they want to get the sensation. They were interested in the shock factor of those images, and I found that to be very problematic. Of like the intention behind shooting those kind of images shouldn't be for the sake of sensationalism and like satisfying some people's uh, weird curiosity.
Hmm.
Uh, it's like using them for like entertainment, which is like doesn't make any sense for me. But yeah, it took for me to make a film in the US. I mean, in China as well, I need to find a personal connection, but in China, sometimes it's easier because I understand the people, I understand their experience. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like my experience so far.
Hmm. Hmm. And last question, I guess, future projects. What are you working on next?
Oh, I'm working. So my last 3 months has been very busy for me. I was finishing this film in December, January in China. I was also filming another film. I'm doing a documentary short right now. I just wrapped production last month. It's a film about parents of autistic adults
Hmm.
and how after 20 years of their raising a kid on the spectrum, they are at a stage of entering like retirement, but they need to think about what will happen if they pass away one day, like who will take care of their children in a society that doesn't really have like a systematic support for autistic adults. There's a lot of care about like children's on the spectrum, but for them who cannot be live independently, they kind of have to figure out a way to navigate this future. So the film will be like a silhouette of focusing if in like a domestic family place, focusing on a mother, contemplating about the future of looking at the uncertainty of who will take care of the kid if they pass away one day.
Hmm. So you don't like easy subjects, I guess, eh?
Well, yeah, I was joking with my friends the other day of like sometimes like one day we need to make a comedy.
Uh,
Uh, we've been making sad films, but yeah, there's something about that of oneself dealing with the future, the uncertainty, and the unseen interests me.
mm, mm.
In
And
the
to
sense
do,
of like, there's a sense of like I want to film like the absent in a way.
hmm.
That's my current interest.
Hmm. And do you plan continuing shooting documentaries, or you have some plans for something fiction?
That's very interesting. Uh, I went to film school in Boston, and I was studying like narrative films. It was kind of like out of uh, chance that I got hired as a documentary filmmaker after graduation, and I've just fallen in love with the process. And I have been making documentary ever since. but kind of because of my background in making narrative films, um, I don't see much of a difference between them in terms of the language. But I love documentaries because it's a reaction of my observation and thinking. It's grounded in reality. Uh, yeah, I'm still interested in making a fiction film, but I feel like for me to make a fiction film, I need some reason of saying why is it has to be fiction. It has to have some reason of saying why is this story fiction and why is it constructed? Why is it written? Is it written to to heighten the story? Is it to heighten the plot? To articulate something that maybe documentary could not do in like a pure observational way. Yeah, that's been my thinking right now in terms of like bridging the gap between fiction and nonfiction. I feel like you kind of can see a little bit in Death Education of how I was approaching it. Um, it's all about it's about articulation with the form and have a dialogue with the cinematic form of films. And I like to call like fiction and nonfiction.
Hmm.
Found the word documentary to be a little bit narrowed. It's nonfiction because it's based on something real, and the film can start from there and go off from there.
Hmm. Good, good. I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's nice talking to you.
You too.